appalling crime on the rise. All of these sort of things that the Tories once would absolutely have been hot on, or at least people would have thought they were hot on. I don't think people even think that now.
No.
Actually.
Well, people don't get locked up. People don't get arrested. We've got a sort of shoplifting epidemic going on at the moment. We've now been told by Dunelm that people are now stealing duvets. I mean, they're basically stealing whatever they want to steal. And there's a pretty good chance if you nick something from a shop, one, you're never going to be tracked down, and if you are, you're never going to go to prison or go to court or anything.
Yes, well, you see, again, this is all happening under a Tory government. OK, the dying embers have won, but nevertheless it's happening under a Tory government. Can you imagine maybe what Thatcher would have done in these situations? With the shoplifting thing, I think it's interesting. A lot of people, maybe on the left, will say, well, this is a cost of living crisis. What do you expect?
I don't believe that.
No, not at all. I mean, the fact is, there have been very hard times in the past, and it's insulting to say that people who actually fall on hard times are going to go and nick stuff. And I think what it is more with this, and it is quite extraordinary, 24% increase, right? And I think that if, in terms of numbers, compared to 2016, there's been something like 5 million more cases of shoplifting. You mentioned about the locking up of duvets, but also we had the body cameras in Sainsbury's. There's a general sense of a breakdown in law and order.
There is.
And I think as well that a lot of people do it, just think they're not going to be punished.
Right. And I think that's absolutely why they're doing it, because if you don't fear the consequences of something, why wouldn't you do it? And I know, certainly from just talking to friends of mine in all parts of the country, there's a general sense of people are much more on their guard when they're out and about. If you go out for a dinner in the evening, you're being very careful about people walking towards you. You're kind of looking around more, because I think, generally speaking, people feel a bit more insecure out in public.
Yes, I think actually you can see that people have, I think there are less people around. People have slightly withdrawn from the public space for that reason, I think. And that is terrible. There are police you never see, for example. But there's also the sense that when the police are active, it's about the wrong things. It's about
well, they're knocking on your door because you reposted something on Twitter, right?
Exactly.
Which is not right.
I think the real problem is, if I just may add, is that in the States, the decision has been made to call a misdemeanor something which, if you shoplift something of £950 or under or something like that, that's just a misdemeanor. So in other words, it just goes, no, you're not going to get charged. I'd hate it if that were actually to come the case here too as well.
And again, the government yesterday came out and said that they were going to push very hard for police officers to go and arrest people and charge them if they steal something for less than £200. But it all, and once again, it's window dressing, isn't it? They're saying that the police should do something that they should already be doing, in the same way that they said they were going to ban these zombie knives and machetes. Effectively, there's already a ban in place for those. It's already illegal. I mean, there's a nicety about what kind of knife exactly is banned. But, I mean, I don't know by banning them that you're going to stop them anyway. We've got some footage here, which I think we can see, of a fight that broke out in a part of London, South London, called Dulwich, which is actually quite a nice part of London and quite a residential area. And if you can see it now, I think it's about to come up. We're warning you, you might find some of these scenes a little bit disturbing. But if you can see what we're looking at here, it's two guys in the middle of a street, and it's night time, but they've got these massive machetes, and you just think to yourself, this is London. What is going on? How soon before that starts happening in broad daylight? How soon before, all sorts of mayhem becomes the norm? Well,
I mean, we saw, for example, in Oxford Street recently, I think you reported on this kind of... it was like not exactly a riot, but it was a sort of mass disorder.
They used to call it steaming, didn't they?
Yeah, exactly, steaming, which used to happen on trains. And this was there was looting took part. I think you actually pointed out in your article about London a while ago that one supermarket in London had been looted 3 times in 1 week, was it?
In one day.
In one day.
3 times in one day. And now people wonder why they've got security guards, why they've got, sort of security tags on things like steak. This was it was actually a branch of the Co-op. So people were coming in and just stealing whatever they wanted. A lot of drink, quite often, is the case. But also terrifying the staff and telling people that, if they try to stop them, that they'll stab them. That kind of thing.
No, it's a kind of low-level disorder now, which is sort of happening on a daily daily basis. And the Met, I think the Met is still in special measures, is it? Which is extraordinary for all sorts of other reasons. Yes. But basically, you've got a sense of lawlessness, and we have a mayor who is far more intent on, pushing things like his mate campaign.
Yes. His mate campaign and trying to charge people for driving around in their own street, in their own car, which is another story. We're talking to Peter Whittle, founder and director of the New Culture Forum. We've got a little documentary clip, something that you've been looking into for a while because it's a personal view of London, the lost city, because you used to call London your home, and you no longer do. Let's have a look at the documentary.
Coming back to Woolwich to live many years later, it had, of course, changed utterly to the point of being unrecognisable. A home now seemingly to the whole world, a place of countless identities and none. There is little sign in this landscape of what remains of the white working class. The speed of change has been mesmerising. Indeed, lacking any real sense of overarching identity, the need to impose a sense of community has become paramount. Whether locally or indeed as we see nationally, never have we heard the word community so bandied about. But it's all pretend, really. Community was never talked about before, simply because it didn't have to be.
There's no question that London is a very different city to the one that I grew up in.
It is. That's what the point of the programme is about. It's a documentary that the New Culture Forum had made, which is on YouTube now. I grew up, born and bred in London. I left it in nearly 2 years ago now. I still work here, but I left it to live. Fact is that I go into all sorts of different areas of why it's changed. But obviously, one of the massive changes has been that when you say 30 years ago, so like one generation, the demographic change, because of the complete change in the levels of migration into London, has actually transformed it in many ways.
And it's been a very speedy change, hasn't it? Because it's been in the last kind of 10 years, really, hasn't it?
It is. What worries me, really, is that it breaks, if you have that level of change, it sort of breaks the continuity of a city. It breaks a communal memory about a city. So what's happened now is that instead of having a kind of sense of a communal backstory, we now have just a set of values that Londoners should sign up to, on climate, on diversity, and all, and being not being a Brexiteer for a start. Right. But I think that the main thing is, for me, is that therefore it's not a British or much less an English city anymore. And it's not a question. London's always had migration, but of this order since Blair, is without historical precedent.
Oh, I think that's right. And the rest of the country isn't quite the same, is it? I mean, in some cities it's similar, but in most parts of the country outside of the cities, the change is less noticeable.
Exactly. I think that a lot of people have left London in the past 2 decades. And this is, in a way, almost irrespective of anything that Khan does. I mean, I'm talking about a much longer period. And, of course, it's a place now, I feel, where if you're young and professional, in your 20s, it's a great place to be for a few years, maybe. But families, older people, I don't think it's a place to put down roots.
People used to say that about New York. It was a very tough place to have a family, because unless you had an absolute bucket load of money, the schools were not very good, and it was quite dangerous, certainly when I was living there in the 80s. But New York was also a place where everybody who came there became a sort of New Yorker. You don't get the sense now that everybody who's come to London feels like they're a Londoner.
No, I not at all. Or rather, actually, interestingly, there were Londoners, Cockneys, for example. One of the points made.
Well, the East End is no longer Cockney, is it?
Oh, good Lord, no. I mean, EastEnders, the TV show, has been a polite fiction for about 25 years. People say, oh, you're just, an old guy and you're kind of getting, just rose-tinted glasses. It's not really a case of that. I mean, the response we've had to this programme has been extraordinary and mostly very sad, people feeling that something has been lost. I think what it is that the character and the sense of London as a unique place, that has sort of gone. It's become much more fragmented now, and it's held together, as I said, supposedly by these values. cities don't have values, Mike. I mean, they have history.
That's like banks saying that they've got values,
yes,
isn't
exactly.
it? Which is what we've also seen. Because it's also virtue signalling. When people talk to me about values, I immediately suspect that they're up to no good. Because what they mean is that we think this, and if you don't think it, you're not only in the wrong, you're an evil individual.
Yes, exactly.
That's where we're going.
Exactly, and that's very strong in London. I mean, if you were a Brexiteer in London, you know, it was tough. I mean, in that sense. Although, of course,
I'm very conscious of something that I have never been conscious of until, I would say, the last year or two, which is when I'm out and about, as I am quite often in London, you often see, because I'm, you know, relatively robust in the way that I speak, and we have conversations with one another, and whenever I'm at a bar with somebody, but you can see some people kind of looking over and kind of going, oh my goodness me, look what he just said. Almost as though there's some kind of thought police going around watching people and making sure they don't say the wrong thing.
Yes, that's very, very strong in London, I think. I think there's also...
It's sad, isn't it?
Yes, it is. There's a kind of arrogance to, I'm afraid, about many people in the city now, who, you know, they think we are doing it the right way, and the rest of the country is just a provincial...
what are these idiots in the north know?
Exactly.
That kind of thing.
That is very strong in London.
And I also the establishment is now a left-wing establishment.
Oh, yes.
From the civil service down.
Well, also, you know, London, all the cultural institutions in London, from the British Library right through to, you know, Kew Gardens, they are all decolonising. You know, they're at the very forefront of this kind of, you know, anti-British,
ashamed of our history. All of that.
That's very much coming from London.
Yeah, which is dangerous, I think, for the culture of Britain. I think it's dangerous for the history of Britain and also for the future of Britain. Because what do we do if we just kind of disassociate ourselves from our past and we just say, well, it really was so embarrassing that we never talk about it. We can't be doing that. That's awful. Luckily, though, we do have artists who can capture moments. We're going to look at now, I think we have a painting that's been done of Theresa May that you wanted to talk about. She was, of course, Prime Minister for slightly longer than Liz Truss, but not that long.
Not much.
What did you make of Theresa May as a Prime Minister?
I think it was one of the most depressing periods I can think of politically.
I never forget 2019, before we had the election in December. Here's a painting. It looks like a sort of really bad album cover from the sort of late 70s. By Uriah Heep or something, one of those sort of heavy metal bands. Or
I mean, it's actually strangely not a very political picture. This is her official picture. It's been done. It costed $28,000. I have to say, all prime ministers get this.
It's a bit funereal, isn't it?
Yes. She looks like a sort of Edwardian lady novelist.
Yes.
Actually,
not a very good one.
Or Doctor Who.
It's very flat as well. I mean, my father was an artist, so I mean, I'm not talking completely and utterly from a point of ignorance. It looks very two-dimensional. To me.
It reminded me rather of the artist Wyndham Lewis, you know, from the 1930s, 40s, who's in the, you know, in the portrait gallery. I think that she's been very gracious about it, and I don't know what she privately thinks. What's interesting, though, is that when Churchill had one done, which was in the mid-1950s, he had his official portrait done by Graham Sutherland. And, you know, he obviously hated it, but he was gracious enough to say, this is a fine example of modern art. But then it was discovered afterwards that Lady Churchill had burnt it. I mean, it was by a great artist called Graham Sutherland.
That can happen. My ex-wife burned a lot of my stuff as well, but for a different reason. Let's talk finally just about the school situation. I mean, Gillian Keegan, many people think that she should be congratulated for straight talking, but whether or not she survives in this particular climate of, you know, blame and counter-blame, I don't know. But let's talk a bit about what's going on inside the schools as well. The gender neutrality, some of the encouragement of schools, particularly private schools, actually, to ask children if they wish to change their gender.
And also single-sex, you know, lavatories. And, not single-sex, but mixed-sex lavatories. Basically, the nub of what the story is today, Mike, is that there's a new report out by a group called Sex Matters, and it's just pointing out that, in fact, if teachers allow kids just simply to use whatever they like, whichever toilet they like, simply based on their gender identity, then they might be breaking the law, because the law actually says that you shouldn't do that. That you should actually still work on the basis of biological sex. Now, the thing is that teachers in this report, I think 70% of teachers reported that there were non-binary and transgender pupils in their schools. That's a huge amount, right? But I feel that there's a lot of social contagion about this. I do think that it is incredibly dangerous, at that age, particularly to allow boys who go into girls.
It seems bonkers, doesn't it?
It does, and in fact, for young girls, I think 4 teenage girls have written to Sunak. It was in the paper today, pleading for basically single-sex bathrooms. I mean, it's extraordinary that we've got to this stage. I think why it's important, this report, is that I think many people might be under the impression that this is all a matter of the law now, that in fact anyone can use anything and you can identify as what you like with no consequences. But in fact the law states something quite specific, and it's worth looking into that, because parents now don't really know what they can and cannot say to teachers.
Right. No, it really is a very, very ridiculously confused area, and it shouldn't be. It really, they've sort of created it and made it more confused out of nothing. Peter, great to see you. Thank you very much indeed. We're out of time, unfortunately. Peter Whittle, founder and director of the New Culture Forum. Have a look at that documentary. What's it called? London?
It's called A Lost London.
A Lost London. You can find it
on
London
YouTube. Lost, sorry.
A London Lost, there you go. Lost the title there for a minute. Never mind. We'll be back very